Okay, so good morning, everyone. The last couple of weeks, I've been talking a lot about goal setting, and and if you've been on any of those calls, you'd have picked up on the three different types of goals that are relevant for people as they strive to achieve more throughout the course of 2020. The first, as a recap, is a results-focused goal, an outcome-centered goal. A goal like that might be something like, I'm going to be on Team Kaizen at the end of 2020, or I'm going to rank advance this year from whatever rank I'm at now to the next rank, platinum to diamond, gold to platinum, or what have you. It may be a number of other goals, maybe an income-related goal. I want to have a check at a certain monetary value on a monthly basis consistently in my business. These are outcome-focused goals. Most people don't have problems with setting these types of goals because they've got a clear focus on what their direction is that they want to pursue, where they want to be. Yeah. The challenge is, though, in my experience, as I've worked with a lot of people now in my career, both on both sides of the table, most people know how to set that type of a goal, but they struggle with actually achieving it, knowing what to do next. So they go, yes, I want to be a diamond by 2020. I guess I'm going to be on Team Kaizen. But then they go, now what? You know, maybe there is a big chasm between where they are now and where they want to be, and they don't know what the next step is in the process. That's where the next goal comes in. The next type of goal is a behavioral goal. And the behavioral goal focuses on what we do. Yeah, so for example, I might have a goal of being on Team Kaizen or rank advancing, getting my earnings up by a certain percentage. For example, my behavioral goal will tie into that. And that will focus on my activities on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. How many people am I going to be speaking to on a daily basis? How many presentations am I going to give on a weekly basis? How many ABCs am I going to conduct on a weekly basis? What events am I going to attend? What training am I going to get? What books am I going to read? What process am I going to follow on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? That one is really, really important. The third type of goal ranks just as high as the second one, and that's a standards goal. A standards goal means, what outcomes do I expect from my activities? I'm going to have a standard of excellence that I tie into my goals. For example, if I say I'm going to speak to 30 people over the next 3 days, how many of those people that I speak to am I going to have setting appointments? How many of those appointments are going to convert into presentations? How many presentations are going to convert into sign-ups? And how many sign-ups will convert into engaged business builders? That conversion rate, now in Nikken, we've often used this law of thirds, haven't we? Which can become a fairly constant or consistent standard that we can use as a measuring stick to find out if we're on track with how we should be performing. The benefit of a standards goal is it gives you the chance to evaluate your behavior and make the needed adjustments so that you get your outcome goal achieved. Yeah, that's really, really important that we emphasize that. If we just have an outcome goal, I don't really have a major amount of control over that. There's not too much I can do to influence that. I can influence it, but I can't control it. Sorry. I can influence my goal, but I can't control it. But I can control my behaviors. So my behavior goal is something that I have far greater control over than my results goal. I'm in charge of what I do. And I'm also in charge of my own standards. So as I measure my standards, if I'm speaking to 30 people in 3 days and only one person agrees to a presentation, I know I'm doing something wrong. I'm not getting my standard achieved. I'm hitting my activity, but I'm not getting the standard. I'm not getting that particular outcome. And that is important for us to measure, because then when we look at our business performance, where am I falling down? I now can see, can't I, where it is that I'm falling down, because I see the deficit right there. There is something that I'm saying when I first contact people that is turning them off, and I need to adjust that. Or I'm getting the conversion rate with my presentations. 10 out of 30 are agreeing to hear a presentation, but only 1 out of 10 is committing to do something. Now there's a problem again. What am I doing in my presentation that's falling through? And then I can look at that section of my business activity and evaluate that, adjust that, work on that, versus if we don't have the standards goals, and if we don't have the activity goals, the behavioral goals, then what happens is we have the outcome goal, and this is where a lot of people struggle and then end up frustrated. They have the outcome goal. I'm going to rank advance. I'm going to get my check to this. And what they do is they work really hard, but because there's no defined activity goal, and of course, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, which means if I don't have a defined behavioral plan, then I'm not going to have something that is measurable. And if it's not measurable, I can't manage it. And if I can't manage it, I can't analyze it. And if I can't analyze it, I can't see where I'm going wrong. And as a result of that, I do a lot of work, I don't get the result, and I don't know where to look. I don't know what to do about it. Okay, so what we want to focus on really is ensuring that we have those three areas of our activity or our business clearly articulated: outcomes, behaviors, and standards. Now, here's a question for you. We place so much emphasis on setting goals, especially around this time of year, don't we? But here's a question. What's more important, goal setting or systems? Which plays the more important part? For many people, we hear it's kind of built into our psyche and our culture that if you want to achieve anything, it comes down to setting meaningful goals. If you want to lose weight, if you want to spend more time with your family, if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, run your own business better, what do we have to do? We have to set meaningful goals. Now, there's a challenge with this because that belief isn't 100% true. Goals are important. They give us direction, but systems provide us the mechanism for making progress. For example, every athlete that enters the Olympic Games shares the same goal: to win a gold medal. No one goes into the Olympics simply to participate. They don't hand out participation prizes at the Olympics. Yeah, they go in to win. So they all share the same goal. Every entrepreneur that begins their own business has the goal to succeed, to become independent, to become a success in what they're doing. Every person that goes into a marriage environment, becomes a parent, has goals to make it work. Yeah. So everyone in every facet of life, if everyone that starts out losing weight has a goal to do that, not everyone succeeds. Not everyone wins the gold medal. Not every marriage succeeds. And not every business that starts out thrives. But they all share one thing in common. They do share the same goals. So what's the difference? The difference is the processes that people put in place, the systems that they follow that will give them different outcomes, which is why we see, my wife will laugh at me for this because I'm going to use a soccer analogy here. And anyone that knows me knows I'm not a sporting buff at all. I grew up playing music and never really played sports all that much. But close to where I lived in England was the Manchester United football grounds. Very, very famous soccer team in England. They had a football coach called Sir Alex Ferguson, who served that team for many, many years. They've got a big statue of him now out the front of the stadium. Huge success. And the team thrived while he was their coach. As he has departed, the team isn't performing as well. They've got the same goals. I don't think they've suddenly moved away and said, I don't think winning's all that important anymore. Yeah, they've not done that. But the process that they follow under a new coach is clearly quite different because they're getting different outcomes. So we need to understand in this process of goal setting that winners and losers actually have the same goals. So don't think that the thing that will differentiate you this year or that will make the change in your business for 2020 is that you've got a better, more refined goal. That's not the case. What we need to understand is that the real thing that we need to focus on is the process that we follow. We need to fall in love with systems. If we can fall in love with systems, then we'll start to make good progress. So what are some of the systems that we can follow in order to have better progress in 2020? I think there's fairly standard procedures that we follow in network marketing. Yeah, it really comes down to, if we look at our business, I've only been in the field now for 4 years, right? That's gone fast, those 4 years, right? But that's a drop in the bucket compared to many of you that are on the call with me today. But being in the field requires a lot of repetition, doesn't it? We're doing a lot of the same stuff over and over. So there's no real secret sauce to doing something particularly unique or different in order to get different results. It really comes down to how we apply ourselves to the systems that we follow. We've got a great schedule. Before we hit the record button today, Yoko asked me a really good question. It's the beginning of the year. What is the schedule for events and calls and webinars and conference calls and all that stuff that's going on? Do we have a schedule? We've got a schedule called the Niken Connect document. You can get it on the lifeandbalancetools.com website. I would encourage you to get it, to circulate it, to spread it, to make it available. We are in the process of updating it. I expect there to be minor changes to it, minor changes, because the schedule is pretty consistent right now from what I see. But I would encourage everyone to really sit down and evaluate, not just because what we're talking about here in processes comes down to the goal type number 2, isn't it? And goal type number 3. It really comes down to, what are my behaviors and what are my standards of excellence? So I think it's very easy for each of us to sit down at the beginning of a year, sit with a mentor or a coach, someone that's in our upline or a beloved cross line perhaps, sit down and say, okay, these are my goals for 2020. This year, I'm going to rank advanced to platinum, or I'm going to rank advanced to diamond. I'm going to get my checkup by 20%. I'm going to make sure that I get onto Team Kaizen. Those are all outcome-focused goals. And the challenge is, as an upline and as a leader that's been in this business for many years, I have heard those types of goals all the time. All the time. And there's this many people set them, and there's this many people achieve them. It's always the way. What I would like to see different in 2020 is that we spend more time as a group of leaders devoted to our process and our standards, and to fall in love with that, so that what we have at the end of the year is a natural byproduct of that daily, weekly, monthly rhythm. The critical thing is, how many of us have seen athletes that win competition after competition after competition, they stop competing and they get fat? Have you seen that happen? And it's like, oh my goodness, you're a professional athlete? Looking at you now, you'd never guess, yeah? We've seen that, haven't we? Why is that? Because their goal was centered around what that outcome was. It was focused on winning a result, getting a result. And as soon as they removed that goal, they had nothing to fight for. They had nothing to compete for. They had nothing to train for. I kind of fall into that trap. But when I was younger, as a musician, I used to play in a lot of jazz bands when I was a kid. I always had something to practice for, because we were always performing at an event or a function somewhere around the country. So I always had a reason to practice. As I got older, I left the country for a couple of years. When I came back, I wasn't in any particular band at the time. And so I had nothing to practice for. And what happened? I kind of stopped playing because I had nothing to play for, which was a tragedy, because music was my life when I was younger. What we want to do is fall in love with doing it for doing its sake. If we can love the process, then the results will come automatically. And as a consequence, we will get them time after time after time, versus what Niken is currently trying to fight right now. If you notice, there is a difference in Team Kaizen qualification this year compared to last year, where they have added, you can't get all the volume in one quarter, right? Because a lot of people would qualify in the month of December, and get in. What they're trying to do is establish good business practice. If we can be consistent and get the volume coming in month after month after month, then the benefit to our business will outweigh the benefit of being in Team Kaizen. Because what a lot of people will do is they'll hit that target and then they'll drop. But it's often like this. And then they carry on again. And that's what happens. It goes like that. That doesn't provide or facilitate meaningful business growth. If we fall in love with the process and establish good daily rhythms, good weekly activities, and clear standards of excellence, and we do that repeatedly, and we fall in love with the results that we're getting because we love the process, then Team Kaizen will come automatically. The check will start to go up automatically. The rank advancements will come in time, and it will happen month after month after month. The real difference that I see, like I said, I'm going to repeat this because it's critical. So many people set the goal focused on the outcome, but they don't set the goal focused on behavior or the performance standards. What I would love to see, and this is an invitation to each of you, is to set some goals around your behavior. What will I do on a daily, weekly basis? Make it a SMART goal. SMART, as a reminder, is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-sensitive. When it's that way, when we have that simple formula for our goals, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-sensitive, when we have that around our behaviors on a daily, weekly, monthly rhythm, and we have a standard that we build into that, a standard of excellence. Out of this amount of activity, what is going to be the outcome? And set the standard. When we have a standard set with those specific goals, I believe we could have a significant shift in the outcomes of everyone's business in 2020. Significant. The key, of course, will be our commitment to apply ourselves to those goals and remain true to them. And that's where the third piece comes in, after changing the shift from goal to process and building in those mechanisms to have a meaningful other person that can help us be accountable on a regular basis to achieving these goals. It's so easy to set the goal at the beginning of the year, to have a fresh start, to have the outcome. We don't necessarily share it with anyone. Maybe we share it with our partner. Maybe we share it with someone else that we're working with, and then it kind of goes quiet. And it just drifts into obscurity, dies a very quiet death, so subtle and so oblique that it's not even worth having a funeral for it. Yeah? Are you raising your hand? You want to say something, Madeline? Please do.
Well, I said it to you when we were in California, Ben. When you fall in love and you kiss someone, you're expected to be kissed back.
Yeah.
And then with all of that, you still want to keep kissing the same person and not looking for another person. And we've been teaching all of this. What you just gave was SMART, the S-M-A-R-T. We got that in HBM. We all know it. We're getting the theory. Yeah. And you use that vegetable soup analogy when you first got into the field, and I said it in California, and I'll say it again here. We have the Nikken Connect. We have people that aren't showing up for it. Something's missing in between. We're not getting kissed back in these relations and the duplication. And I think it's still a lot of change and so many different processes. So we have tenured people here that are still stuck and still looking, and we want to hear your wisdom. And then we have some new people. Here's Christian, who's the hotshot team up in Canada with a process. And so now he's here listening, and here's all of us, and we have somebody that's young. We need interactional hands-on. Like I like that Ikigai team thing that we did because our little team made some progress, doing some things in between, and accountability to one another. I see the Thorntons on here. They're on our team, and Dee Welsh probably is. But, that's my recommendation back to you and all of us who are, Michelle and I are questioning the Thursday night better way. What are we going to do with it differently? Asking people, including ourselves, to be hosting at the same time. So we have people here. So I think pretty much we know, or we've heard. I'm thinking here, yesterday I was on Brody's goal setting, and I have his notes. Wednesday night, Jeff Isom's doing his, and now you're doing this. So I'm looking through the same book now. What major themes and tips are coming through all of our goal presenters here on the ATR? We do the same thing there. It's something about the getting love kissed back and falling in love that we need to keep staying with, who, you know, and the duplication. And I'll just say myself, this increase in the retelling, my God, I have an appointment tomorrow with a practice that I've been following up on that looks promising. Well, you know, so if I focus on something like that in building a team and all of the new 1-2s and lists and writing this and that and the other, I mean, that's the part that, especially for those of us that have been around for a long time, that is, it's giving me, or I'm allowing it to give me, perceiving it as a little bit of stress. And I just wonder, looking around with some others that I see here that are on those same calls with me, or we have side conversations, can you address that?
Yeah. You've raised a really good point. This principle of being kissed back. Yeah. I want to talk about that. That's such a great metaphor, Madeline. It really is. You know, we're in love with something here. We're doing the right things. We want to kiss the person we love. And of course, we expect reciprocation, something coming back. What you're explaining here is there is a feedback loop that is essential in the goal setting and process execution formula that is very, very important. If there isn't feedback by way of results, outcomes, that is in line with what our goals are, what our standards are, what our behavior is, then something is amiss, okay? Now, the problem that many people face in this regard is the milestones that they set are often too large. And I'll use an extreme example, but I'll use it with confidence because I believe in it 100%. You've heard me talk about this a number of times. A good number of years ago now, I did some volunteer work for a family services agency in my local area, facilitating or leading an addiction recovery program. And it was a powerful experience in learning about self-improvement, because what you've got there is personal development in its rawest, most brutal, most life-saving form that you will ever come across in your life. Now, Russell Brand is a celebrity that some people may know on this call, some people may not. And maybe he's a bit Marmite for some people. Some people love him, some people really don't like him. I think he's actually quite a genius guy. I've got a lot of respect for him. He's recently set up a program for recovery, and he said it's not for addicts, it's for everyone, because these 12 steps that people follow, he said, help us to recover ourselves to the best version of us, right? And so he's applying those principles to everyone. And I love that concept, because having witnessed so many people in that journey go through that desperate effort to change and transform, taught me so many lessons myself that I got a lot of value from, and that I've taught myself both publicly and privately as a result. And this is one of the principles that they live by, and it's a famous one, of course, and that is one day at a time. Have we all heard that saying, right? One day at a time. For many people, when they first enter that program, they're offended by that principle. To live one day at a time, you kidding me? Don't you know who I am? Don't you know what I've achieved? Don't you know what I've accomplished in my life? And you're saying I can't set a 12-month plan because I need to live one day at a time? Well, eventually they realize that that's the only way they can live. And sometimes it's not even a day. Sometimes it's an hour. Sometimes it's like just live in the moment. And that's what they learn to do. And over time, what they learn is the practice of good daily living. And what I think is the relevance here in this message is, as we look to get kissed back, as we look for feedback in what we're doing, what is critical is, for too many of us, we set the gap between what we do and where the result is too wide, too big. And surprisingly for most, the distance is much smaller than what we think it should be. It's much more reduced. It's much more simple. We want to have these noble big goals of becoming a Team Kaizen member or rank advancing to Diamond. We want to have this, and we go, I should set that goal. As soon as I say should, I've set a rule for myself that is problematic. Yeah. Because the very essence of that word suggests that rule doesn't even exist right now. Because I'm saying it should. Oh, well, it's not, because you're not getting those results. So the fact that I should set that goal is irrelevant. Should is a false expectation. So shift that, kick that out the door. Yeah. But we have these expectations we place on ourselves and say, I've been around, I'm tenured. I should get this result. And so, well, let's look at the results that you're getting right now. And let's be real. Let's own that. Let's be honest with ourselves. Step number one is not a should statement of what I should expect out of life or out of my business because of my age, because of my experience, or because of whatever factor we throw at it. That's all irrelevant. Look at the results and then say, based on this, what can I work towards to ensure improvement and progress? And often that will be more baby steps. It's ironic, it's paradoxical that we want to achieve great things and we do that by setting small goals. For many people on the call today, the best goals that can be set is to actually pick up the phone and talk to someone today. Maybe do that within the next hour. And if people would set and achieve those types of goals, we would start to see different results over time. But we're stretching too far into the future. And it's like, to carry on that metaphor of Madeline, it's like I'm trying to throw long distance kisses. It's very hard to hit your goal and very hard to get it back that way. Kissing requires proximity, doesn't it? It requires proximity. And so if we want to get kissed back in our business, then we need to be up close and personal with where the activity really matters. And so I would suggest remove the should statements. I should set this goal because I am this. I am perceived to be this, therefore I should do that. Eliminate that. You're burdening yourself with unrealistic expectations based on should statements, which are unreal. They're not true. They're not real. Eliminate that. Just be honest with yourself and say, you know, like the addict, I've got a problem. This is my reality, and it's not what I like. I'm not getting the outcomes that I want. Own that bit first, and then the thing is with that, this was the wonderful beauty of that statement, of that first step that these people would follow, is in admitting the problem. At first, you think you're surrendering to failure, when in fact you're liberating yourself from it. It's a contradiction in reality, in outcome. Because as soon as you say, this is my reality, warts and all, this is what I'm getting, this is what my business is. Yes, I'm this rank, but this is where my business is right now. Yeah, this is what people think I'm doing, but this is what I'm getting, right? Forget what the perception is. Get right down there to where you really are. Own that. Embrace it. And not in the context of surrender to failure, but to liberate yourself from a false reality. So that once you're there and you can admit that, you can move forward from there and do something different. But it's baby steps, because proximity brings change in this process. Yeah. If I throw it out and say, I'm going to make a radical difference, I'm going to start striving and jumping and leaping and bounding towards my results, but I've been broken and crawling for the last few years, then those are unrealistic goals. So the critical thing is, because what drives this circle as well is another central ingredient, which is belief. And if I'm getting bad results, and I've had bad results for a long time, then my belief will get compromised, which means how I act will be compromised. Because if I'm not doing it with conviction, when I'm talking to others, they're not going to believe what I say. We always believe body language over words. Excuse the background noise there of my front door. We always believe body language over words. Yeah? Which means I can say all the right stuff, have a perfect script, but if I'm not convinced to myself, I won't be very convincing to others. Okay? So in order to improve my belief so that my behavior improves, even if I'm going through the motions, going through the process, If I need to improve my belief, how do I do that? It's really straightforward. Get proximate again. Get up close and personal to little changes. Have that one day at a time, or that moment to moment, that step by step, hour by hour principle of, I'm going to call someone in the next hour. I'm going to invite someone to do something in the next 30 minutes. If we set short little goals like that, what happens is we can measure those results. And when we get a result like that, where someone says, hey, I'll be happy to talk, measure that, because now you have evidence. You've just been kissed back. Yeah. But if we set big goals that have big distance between where we are and where we should be, and we're using the measurement of what our perception is versus reality, we make a big jump. There's a lot of space there to miss. We don't get kissed back, and we go, I'm failing. And what happens? My belief is compromised. But if I take the little steps, I'm going to call someone in the next 30 minutes. I'm going to try and set an appointment before lunchtime for a presentation. And we set small proximate goals like that, that we have influence and control over, that are based on our activity, and we have a clear standard of excellence that allows us to measure, evaluate, and improve. We will get kissed back more. And the more kissed back we get, of course, the more love we feel, the more love we want to give. Yeah. And it becomes a virtuous circle. So that would be my recommendation based on Madeline's question. I think that's a profoundly important question that Madeline raised. So my invitation, just to summarize now as we come to the end of the call, is yes, we have outcomes. Those outcome goals are often a long way away, but we want to set daily, weekly, monthly goals where we have this principle of clearly defined, again, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-sensitive goals. Yeah, we want to have them focused on little things so that we can allow our business to kiss us back, so we can get that feedback coming through from our business that provides results back to us, that is evidence that I have reason to believe. And when I have evidence presented back to me that I'm on the right track, and even if we're starting out with those little ones, which is where we all need to begin, yeah? If we get that evidence coming back in little ways and we view and validate, that's an important thing, view and validate that feedback when it comes back, then our belief will start to grow. And with our increased belief, our activity is more believable. We can go through the motions in this business, but if we're not feeling it, other people won't feel it either. This is an emotion-driven business. And in order to feel it from the hearts of others, they've got to feel it in us first. And if we need to work on that, we work on it by getting up close and personal with the little things and have small, measurable, achievable targets that give us the chance for reciprocation, for feedback, for validation. And then we can move from there to bigger places. But it's a step-by-step process. And this is why doing the business daily, weekly, and monthly is so important. And it's why Nikken, in their wisdom, have said, if you want to be on Team Kaizen, don't shove it all into the final quarter of the year. Spread it out throughout the year, because they see the value of this principle. Yeah. So we've got validation here from the way that Nikken have put the plans together for 2020. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great that we can be on the same page there? If we understand that, we'll get great value from it. So thank you all very much. And I look forward to seeing you. 1 second. Yeah. Okay, I'll get it to you in a second. Okay, so thank you all very much. Madeline, you want to say something before we end?
Yeah, just lift him up and give him a kiss for all of us to see.
He's only got a pair of underpants on right now. So
we only need to see his head.
Yeah, he's run out the door. He's looking for his Play-Doh. So thank you all very much. Love you so much. And again, if you want help in this process, just reach out. The critical thing is, like I said, small steps that we can constantly validate and appreciate and value will make a huge difference to feeling and getting the feedback that we need. Thank you all, and we'll speak to you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ben.